Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Almighty, the Lord of the worlds. May Allah's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon His final and last messenger, Muhammad. I understand that one of the very pressing questions of the time, and especially when it comes to Muslims and non-Muslims, is how Muslims should treat non-Muslims, and the question of how Muslims view non-Muslims. To start with, there is a very foundational verse in this context, and this is the verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the noble Quran, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. That's, O mankind, O humanity, we have created you of a single pair of male and female, and we made you into nations and tribes that you may know one another. Of course, there are many striking facts about this verse, but to sum it up, you can see that it starts with Ya ayyuhan nas. So it addresses all the peoples of the world, irrespective of their ethnicity, their background, their nationality, their language. What matters is all are human beings. And it is for this we at Al-Azhar believe that what we all have in common as human beings is really far more powerful than anything that would drive us apart. Another striking fact that we can read clearly in the verse, as it reads, لِتَعَارَفُوا, that you may know one another. So this is very telling of the fact that the principle when it comes to relations between Muslims and non-Muslims is nothing but peace, peaceful coexistence, based on mutual respect and mutual understanding. As you can clearly see that the prime purpose and the prime objective of all of us with this striking diversity is for us to get to know one another, i.e. we can clearly and instantaneously understand that in order for this objective to be achieved, it has to be achieved within an atmosphere of peace. Otherwise, it would not be possible for people to get to know one another. And this is why, and I repeat, the principle when it comes to relations between Muslims and non-Muslims is nothing but peace and peaceful coexistence based on mutual respect and mutual understanding. And you can see this from the example of the Prophet ﷺ. How is it as he, even before receiving the revelation, how is it he was known to be the trustworthy and the honest, as-Sadiq al-Amin, and he was known as the teller of the truth. So this is how he was known among all the people. And after receiving the revelation, he didn't say to his companions, now you are Muslims, so you are allowed to fight against or to kill those who are not Muslims. This completely was not the case. Rather, when he knew of the king of Abyssinia, Negus, he asked them to go and to seek refuge in his land. And he happened to be a Christian, and he happened to be known for his justice. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ instructed his companions to go there, as he was a just king. And of course we know the interesting and the amazing story that happened during the meeting that happened with the king of Abyssinia and the delegation of Muslims. And how is it? He said the difference between what Jesus, peace be upon him, came with and what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came with is just a very thin line. Not only this, Muslims endured a lot of persecution and a lot of trials and hardships. Yet, what all they did was the second immigration. So after the first of them to Abyssinia, they fled to Medina, previously known as Yathrib. So you can see that it was never about Muslims being eager or looking forward to be in confrontation with non-Muslims. This never happened to be the case. And even after all of this, when the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, right away he instructed Muslims to offer their services to all the people who were there. Muslims, non-Muslims, even polytheists, all of them. The Prophet peace be upon him started the market which offered its service to everyone, and he led a clean-up campaign which of course was for the benefit of everyone. And we know the incident of the source of the water and how that the Muslims left and allowed everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims, to have access to the water and without distinguishing against or discriminating against anyone. Not only this, we know that the Prophet ﷺ drafted the Wathiqa of Al-Madinah, or the document or the constitution of Al-Madinah. And how is it? This constitution or this charter stipulated the rights of all the people who lived there, irrespective of what they believe in or their background. It stated unequivocally that all of them are equal and that they enjoy the same rights and they shoulder the same responsibilities. Again, after all of this, you see that all the expeditions or all the incidents in which Muslims had to go to the battlefield, you can see that it was all of them, all of these incidents, they were in defense of themselves, but they were never transgressors. So you can see that all of them were in defense of another of an attack that was being planned or conspired against the Muslims, or to take the first step in order to prevent an aggression against Muslims. But it was never meant to transgress against non-Muslims or to seize these lands. And you have the example of Egypt. How is it Egypt was occupied by the Romans and the Copts of Egypt were persecuted? And this is a historical fact, and it is written by many non-Muslims, and they are very well-known historians, and we can see this in their books. And it is for this here I'd like to highlight what Dr. Karen Armstrong, the well-known British author, what she highlighted about the Prophet peace be upon him in one of his books, that it's unjust, as a matter of fact, to make a comparison between the time of Jesus peace be upon him and the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because this is a fact that cannot be ignored, or for us to turn a blind eye against this. Because during the time of Jesus peace be upon him, there was a system, there was some sort of stability. But during the time of the Prophet peace be upon him, this was not the case. It was just a matter of who is the stronger in order to overcome and subdue the weaker. So the Prophet ﷺ was in pursuit of establishing security and bringing about peace and ensuring the rights of everyone in this part of the world. And this is what she mentions in her book. Another thing, after all of these years, and when it was time for the Prophet peace be upon him to return back to Mecca, he never claimed or he never proclaimed it to be payback time, and this is the time for revenge and to avenge all the atrocities and the injustices that were practiced against Muslims. No, this was not the case at all. Rather, he declared clearly that whoever enters the sacred mosque is safe. Whoever enters the house of Abu Sufyan is safe. Whoever enters his house is safe. And this is why he asked the polytheists of Mecca and the people who deny the message, the deniers of Mecca. And he said to them, what do you think I'm going to do? They said, definitely, you are a noble son, and you are the son of a noble brother. So he said to them, you are free to go. Yes, after all of these injustices and after all of this unspeakable persecution, the Prophet ﷺ pardoned all of them and he forgave all of them. So what more needs to be said in order to emphasize the fact that Islam is totally for peace and is always encouraging Muslims to be inclined to peace and to opt for peace? As a matter of fact, still there is more to be said. During Khutbat al-Wada', that's the farewell sermon of the Prophet ﷺ, which was shortly before the passing away of the Prophet ﷺ, he stated many striking things, and this is why it's really worthy to study Khutbat al-Wada'. And among the very important points that the Prophet ﷺ emphasized is emphasizing the inviolability of the human blood. He in very clear and in very obvious words and in strong words, he emphasized and underscored the sacredness and the right of every human being to have a life of peace and security. And he declared unlawful any transgression against the human life. So my point is, I can go on and on from historical facts and from the verses of the Noble Quran and in the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. The Quran completely and clearly states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forbid you from being just and showing courtesy and extra courtesy to those non-Muslims who never fought against you or have driven you out of your homes because of your religion. And as a matter of fact, the Quran uses the term birr, which is the same word that the Quran uses when it instructs Muslims how to treat their parents. So you see the point here, the same way of treatment that Islam teaches Muslims to show and to practice when it comes to their parents is the same way of treatment and behavior that Islam orders Muslims to show non-Muslims.